movie. There's
Wow.
like 2 of them at least, maybe more. But it's the whole 5, 4, 3.
That's like not Wayne's World. That's like a thing. Like
It's a thing
In
for like television. Got it.
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
so here's another thing about television. I have a bone to pick with her, but also all of you that are out there. If we rewind the tape and look at the video from last week, literally my hair was sticking straight up
I did
the
note that.
entire time that I was talking,
I did note
and I looked the fool. And I was like, here's how second place works. All right, so if you're watching for the first time, this is how second place works. If you have a booger hanging out of your nose and you walk into this warehouse, I am going to tell you said booger is in said place. All right, and you need to get rid of it. If you're walking around, how many times have I done this? Walking around and you've got the tag hanging on the outside of your shirt because you just got ready in 2 seconds. I don't know why you were in a rush, but it's hanging out. I just politely, not necessarily a girl, but a guy, I go over and I flip that tag inside the shirt so you don't look like that. Like all you had to do, all that anybody had to do was comment in the comments that, Joe, your hair is sticking straight up. But it's okay. Because it's not about me.
No, it wasn't
It's not
about you.
about me. It's all good.
glad you
I just
got that
felt like,
figured out.
just in terms of like the culture that we're trying to build here, is that
was
look,
trying to
if
figure out where we were going with
if
that.
your hair was like crazy right now, I would say, babe, we need to do some things here. You know, that's
No.
what we need to do.
No,
But
that would probably hurt my feelings.
But you're welcome. Another Hawaiian shirt for all of you. This is from our lovely resident Ashley Persinger. Hello, Ashley.
We do have
This is
a little string, since we're already fixing things. Great.
okay. Well,
good.
that's that. You can't
care
see
of it.
that on a galloping
They might.
horse.
Well,
oh
they
my
might.
goodness.
They might see it. Okay.
So
Good
what kind of
morning.
a week have you had? This is the time right now. Now that we've gotten all the weird stuff out of the way, you
Now
can
you
go
can
ahead and
share it.
share the
Okay.
video.
Yeah.
Share the video. Let people know that you are watching online with us. We are
Truly
excited.
family. Like,
Yes,
yeah, mhm.
yes. We've got folks that are have opened their homes, some host homes, and so if you'd
Glad to
like
see
to
you guys.
find a host home that you'd be able to connect up with another family that's in your area, you can click the link in the description of the video, and you can see what that looks like.
Or
and-
some kind soul might put it in the comments so that, people like me who can't seem to find it
yeah,
in the description,
right.
they put it down there for people like me who
There
just
you go.
oh, wait, there's the link. Thank
Yes.
you. That was
We
very
could see
kind
that
of you.
happen. We could
Usually
see that happen.
Marisa
I
is
love
the
it.
one good for that.
Yes, I don't. Is Marisa watching right now?
Yeah, she is, I'm
sure
sure.
she is.
I'm
I'm
sure.
sure she is. Well, this is all good. So, what else happened this week that was exciting? Well, here's the thing. So we have been, if you don't know this, last year we had decided we were going to upgrade our live stream equipment, and the generosity flowed for that, and it's been a real blessing because little did we know the little coronavirus would be coming on the scene, and so now we have a new normal, and we haven't been able to use all of the equipment because we're in our basement and it just wasn't really conducive for that, and so it was kind of like too much. So basically, what's awesome is that another resident, Lauren Imhoff, has been working with the tech team to get this new equipment set up. So if it's good today, it's really because, man, we have our act together. If it's not great today,
We're
it's
working
because
on
of
getting our act
Lauren
together.
Imhoff. So Lauren at secondplacechurch.com. That's all you got to do. Be like, hey, get your game together. No, she's awesome. She's awesome.
That's not
Imhoff, I can always.
Words of life.
Okay, that was.
Words of life. Lauren,
It's just.
you're
She says
Great
yes to
job.
words of
Great
life.
job.
Words of life. So where are you watching from? That would be the other question. You can comment in the comments is, are you at someone else's house? Do you know whose house you're in? Do you know where you're at?
in the world you are.
Yeah, do you know where in the world you are? Last week we had several Florida fugitives.
Floridians?
Yes, several Florida fugitives, which is hard to say.
Yeah, because
But we had a lot, and so this week I think we have many of them have come home now. But we
Much
do
to
have
their
at least
chagrin.
one more family. The Vales are still down there. So if you haven't been a part of tell us about our kids, kind of like our kids service,
adaptation.
like at
as
9:30.
We're still, we think we get something figured out, and then we try something new. So here we are. So we're back at the warehouse, and we sent home some pretty cool things to go with the lesson this week. Well, last week, this week, and we have the stuff for next week too. There's things like red cellophane.
Okay.
Like,
So that's
what do you
like
need that for?
that's like yeah, you have to figure out what
Yeah,
would
why
we
would
use
you
that
why
for?
would you want red cellophane?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
And then watercolor paint.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
New
Watercolor paint is
new
interesting
watercolor
stuff.
paint. Yeah. So things that you go, why? Why would we need to do that? Well, turns out not just kids learn through doing. And so there's a really cool project from today where it looks like there's nothing on the paper until you paint it with watercolors. And
then something shows up.
and it goes to show sometimes we don't know what God is up to. We think we know, but we don't always know. It's a good lesson in life.
And what's been kind of interesting, actually, is that we have been going through the early church history with Acts and all that in our main service, on our main online service. But
And it's
the
lining
kids have been doing the same thing. And
Yes.
today they actually studied the same story that I'm talking about today, the
I
story
know.
of Paul.
We got a
So-
little ahead earlier because we did Stephen the week before.
Yes.
You got to
Yes.
Stephen, but it was all good. It's pretty cool how God is working like that. I love allergy season too.
Yes. So you guys, we've got all of you guys, the Vales are on, the Detlefs. It's good to see you. The Eppersons are in Wisconsin. It's all good. It's good to see you,
So
Skaturos. Good morning. Alex, what's going on, man? Good to see you.
You guys are
It's
pretty
awesome
amazing.
to see all of you guys
Don't you love
online.
that? Like that.
Melonie's
to
back
see-
in Tinley Park. She's
Yay.
hanging out now. That's so good.
Keeping busy.
It's
working.
exciting.
Yes.
It is so good. So what else is
Good
going
day.
on? What else has happened this week?
Well, hopefully people were getting connected with their groups. We're trying to figure out ways to still connect.
Yeah, so that's a good adjustment that we've made,
Yeah,
right? So when we started with only online gatherings like this, and we also added a Zoom call for our students. We added on our Wednesday nights, and then we had a Zoom call for the ladies on Friday, and then we had a Zoom call for the kids on Saturday.
Yes.
So we're continuing in June, we're continuing with the students on Wednesday night, and they have, just like we've got kind of opened up homes
Yes.
to connect, the student groups have also done that too in their small groups, kind of find a spot where they can go. Sometimes one or two groups come up to the warehouse, and the others either meet online or in
at
home.
home.
And so that's been an adjustment.
Yeah.
And so, but we
So
also
now we're working on the kids and the ladies,
Yeah.
what that looks like, because you get into summer and life does pick up. You start getting outside more, which is great. The trails have been amazing. I drove through where I used to live near Palos, and I realized I never went to the forest preserves over there. Never did the trails. There's some really great trails.
I mean-
I have loved learning about all the different trails in Cook County. Some of them aren't even paved. Do you know that?
that's amazing.
It is
And
amazing.
They're starting to open up now, mostly,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
so
yeah.
We're
For sure.
past that.
Those are open. So get outside, enjoy those. So what we're trying to figure out then, what that means for the kids, we still want them to be able to connect. So we're looking at ways that we can do this home plus thing for kids and the ladies.
Yes.
So we are talking about another cooking freezer meal night in July, open to anyone. But that kind of allows us some gathering points with meals taken care of, which is the bonus.
Which is,
you know?
speaking of meals, now, if you don't receive my email on a consistent basis, I send out an email almost every day, but they're all different. But I do include some recipes.
You
now,
do.
So
You do.
this past week, there was a little nugget there. If like everything that's going on is driving you bananas, I gave some
Yeah.
recipes for
It's
bananas.
very clever.
Banana cream pie, some banana pancakes, which is great. But I also, a few weeks ago, gave you guys a recipe for bread that Annalise had started making, which is amazing. And we made it yesterday.
Because it was cooler.
And so you have
Put
to,
on
I
the
think
oven
the
again.
oven is set to, I'm going to bring you somewhere right now. So it's set to
450.
450.
Hot.
And so we got the first loaf out of the oven, put the second loaf in, and then I just go ahead and I push the rack with my hand, which is at 450 degrees. And let's just say that my hand has never moved faster off of something like that, because that's all I got.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. That
I have
was,
something for
I
that.
thought there was going to be like a lot of, but if you've
Lavender and
ever, I
vitamin
mean,
E.
these are the things that happen when things are out of whack and things are crazy, but you start
Right, goes some-
baking more and you start pushing like,
Yes, and it does need water. It needs a water bath, which, we forgot. Halfway through, figured it out. It just crunchies the bread. It's so good.
so that's
Anyway.
all good. And by the way, I didn't see if anybody, I was looking to see if anybody commented, just so you know, like, hey, Linda Pelkey and Jessica, good to see you guys. But I didn't see if anybody was actually noticing that we coordinated today.
Not
And
matched.
actually, we don't
do
match.
not match.
We don't match.
No.
And the reason is because we're not going to Great America today.
Right. Nope.
Because
that is
what we
reserved
always
for Great
see
America.
is like we always make fun of the people that have all the same shirts
And by
on.
we mean you.
Well, it's just one of those things. Like, but coordination is happening. I love it.
Coordination, yeah.
And it's so good to be back. We're gonna do a normal thing. If you haven't been with us before, so we're gonna open with a song. The band is gonna do most of the music at the end of the gathering, at the end of the service, and then I'll come in, kind of talk about a few different announcements that we have coming up. Very, very exciting things that we're gonna be able to share. And yeah, I think that there's going to be a few things. Then I'll share the message, and then we'll have the music back. So the band's going to come up right now, and they're going to start taking us into that first song, which is super exciting. And it's a great, kind of an oldie, but
Oldie
it's
but a
good.
goodie.
But it's
Yeah.
going to be so good. So here is the thing that you need to do right now. If you are at home and you're with others or by yourself, it doesn't matter. This is for you. To cross the line from being just watching this to participating. That is the biggest thing, the biggest way that you can help yourself and get the most out of the service is to move over that line. So if
No
you're,
intimidation.
yeah. So this is the time when, you know what? If you're at home by your, wow, I can't talk. If you're at home by yourself, you can stand up right now. We have an in-studio audience. They're going to stand up right now, and they're going to, look at them. They're all moving. They're all moving. I had to wake Sam up.
We can sing.
We can
Like,
sing.
this is the best time because nobody can hear you. Like, there's
Unless you're
no
in a group.
intimidation.
Right. And
Listen.
it doesn't even matter
No,
because
it doesn't
you do
matter.
you.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, and I know that some of you have your own instruments out. I know some of the kids right now, now's a good time to go get like a wooden
Guitar,
spoon and a
bowl.
pot or a pan and just go crazy because, well, now's the time to make a joyful noise, and sometimes that's what all we got is a noise to make. So you guys, here we go. We're going to dive into the first song, and yeah, let's
Good
enjoy
morning.
it.
It's so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, and to know, thus saith the Lord. Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Trust him more. And oh, how sweet to trust in Jesus, just to trust his cleansing blood, just in simple faith to plunge me beneath the healing cleansing flood. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust in Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus. Oh, for grace to trust Him more. Savior, friend, and I know that Thou art with me, wilt be with me to the end, to the end. In Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I proved Him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him more. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust Him, how I proved Him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust Him more. More, more, trust Him trust Him more. Jesus, we thank You for another opportunity to come before You, to worship You. We don't take for granted every day that You give us, every breath that we get. And so this morning, may You just make Your presence real to us. It's in Your name that we pray. Amen.
Thanks, guys. Welcome to Second Place Online. This is an awesome day to be together. My name is Joe. I'm the lead pastor here at Second Place. And if this is your first time watching us and being together with us online, man, welcome, welcome. It's always a wild ride. Our band is going to be back in just a few minutes at the end of the service to take us into a few more songs, which is exciting. We're going to do the new song that we debuted last week that I keep saying the wrong name of it is. It's Love is a Hope Worth Fighting For. Is that right, Micah? Yes, I got it right. So it is awesome to have you here. Man, if you don't mind, why don't you just go ahead and just share where you're watching from and let us know that you're there. Say hi. There's a bunch of people online this morning, and we're excited to have you with us. There's also, in the description of this video, there is a link to our connection card. Now, if you want to stay connected, and if you saw us right before our first song, I was talking about the recipes that we send out and some of the major details of what's going on, and I try to encourage you each week with the kind of a follow-up to the message on Tuesday. And by the way, let me just tell you like what the strategy is on the email. And so the first day is kind of like looking at the week. The second Tuesday is all about the past message and like kind of like unpacking that a little bit more. Wednesday is all about story and about generosity. Thursday is a preview of the message coming up, and Friday is a preview of the weekend and all the things we have going on. And so if you don't get that, that's a great place for you to let us know that you like it, is by completing that connection card that's online, and there's a link to that in the description of the video. And really kind of like thinking about that for a second and the idea of updates and what's going on. You know, we have been on a roller coaster ride since March 22nd or so, I think was our first weekend where we actually went online. And it's been a massive learning curve, but you guys out there, all of our regulars are just holding on strong and been doing great hanging with us. And we see everybody online hanging out with us, and it's just so good. And through that process, we've been adjusting how we can add value to your life and add value to your family. And so we've changed some things up since we started. We started with a different technology setup, and we've adjusted almost every week to make that better and improve upon that for you. Prior to all of this really happening, our live stream audio was rough at best, and now we've hopefully have it to a place where you're able to enjoy the music and to participate with us. So there's been all kinds of changes, and it's been great. We've had a lot of support. I've had a lot of support from other churches and other church leaders as we have all been investigating and finding resources and sharing those and making this absolutely the best that it can be for you. Now, I know that many of you, like me, would love to be right here in the warehouse right now, and you're probably wondering, when is that going to happen? Well, I want to be able to share with you a little bit about what's going to be happening in the next couple of months. We have basically the beginning, we're in the middle of June. Can you believe June is already half over, basically? It's the 14th. It's just incredible. But I want Lauren to go ahead and bring up this graphic, and I want you to see kind of like the phases that we have been in, are currently in, and are heading to. And so as you look at this graphic, what you'll see is that on the left side, this is more of the historical phase. This is our phase where we were safer at home, and we were only doing church online. We were only doing church online. And then we added a drive-in service on May 31st, which was awesome, which was great. So that was kind of phase one. That's historical. That happened basically from March 22nd to May 31st. And then the second phase, Together at Home, that's kind of where we're at right now in the month of June. And so we've adjusted again, and we're doing online, but we've also opened up homes and asked some folks that would be willing to host folks at their home to open up and to allow people to gather together. And that's been happening. And so a shout out to the Martins and a shout out to Danielle's group and all of the others that are out there that are hanging out. And some of you that are gathering just because you know each other and you're getting together. I know the Bergrens are together and have people over too. So we just love that. And so this is kind of the phase we're in, Together at Home, online plus home churches. And then on the last day of June, we're going to do another drive-in on June 28th, which is going to be exciting to be able to see everyone again. Then the third phase is July and August. And this is what we're calling social and distant, where we're going to continue to do the online service. We're going to continue to open up our homes. But we're also, and get ready for it, somebody's got to give me a drum roll, is that we're going to open the warehouse with a limited capacity. And then at the end of each of those months, we're going to add a drive-in. So what this means, if you keep that graphic up there, in July and August, we're going to be online. So you'll always have access to Second Place and to be a part of the gathering online for sure and certain. And we're going to continue to encourage those that are hosting, if they're willing to continue to host into those couple of months as well. And then we're also going to open up the warehouse, and the warehouse is going to be a limited capacity situation. So our team is hard at work. We're going to be meeting this week to really kind of put some details together for all of you guys, and we're going to basically get you guys kind of the guidelines of what it's going to look like when we come back. And there's going to be a lot of things that we're thinking through. There's a lot of different guidelines, restrictions, and as you know, it's been crazy as we have been on the roller coaster ride with all of the state restrictions and the state saying we can't meet, and then we can, and then this number, that number, and all that stuff. And so our team is all over that, and we are ready to go to kind of get those details to you. And so what's exciting about this is that we start to see kind of how this is rolling out. And I want to say thank you to all of you that are out there, because for me, doing this whole thing and kind of on this roller coaster, it would not have been possible without your support. And so not only your generosity that you guys give on a weekly basis, but also just your participation on the live and allowing us to be a part of your life through that. That's been amazing. And so we're excited for the future and to be able to share that with you. for the July and August timeframe. I'm also wanting to let you know about something else that's really exciting, and that is that we are going to be doing another Story So Far webinar, that rhymes, another Story So Far webinar on June 28th at 7 p.m. That's a Sunday, and it's going to be at 7 o'clock. Many of you joined us for our webinar in May, and we're going to do another one in June. And I am excited because we're going to be talking about what does the longer term past August, what does that look like for us as a church? And so there might be a couple more rectangles in that graphic of phases. And so I want to invite you to be a part of that webinar. And if you'd like to be a part of that webinar, look for the details in our email, and that'll be coming to you. And if you don't get the email, like I said, let us know through that connection card, and we would love to be able to get you guys that information. I am so pumped. I mean, again, in that first webinar, many of you were like, man, I wish we had a little bit more information. And in the next one, we hope to give you guys that little bit more information so you guys can continue to pray with us and we can continue to dream. I heard a song today, and the lyrics really inspired me, and I think are appropriate right now, is that basically, you know, when things change and everything has been changing, everything has been kind of crazy, and there's been all kinds of, our normal has been like upset and thrown all over, is that, you know what, it's a different season right now. It really is. It's a different season for all of us. And so many of us could say, here's my list, Joe, about how different my life is today than it was 3 months ago. But here's what I'll tell you. And when it comes to Sarah and I, our family in second place, and what we believe God is doing, is that it's a different season, but it's the same dream. We still have the same dream to add value to your life, to create experiences that are going to inspire you and equip you, and to pursue Jesus home and others first. And so, different season, and that's kind of like reality, but it's the same dream. It's the same dream. So, I don't know about you. Let's kind of dive in a little bit. One of the movies I loved when I was growing up, you guys should know this now, and you guys, if you guys have been around a while, Rocky, right? Love Rocky. Just kind of got that going when I was young. I remember watching, the first time I watched Rocky 1, I was watching in my room on a black and white TV about this big. It was literally about that big. And it was amazing. What was really cool, and if you haven't seen Rocky because you're like been living under a rock forever, go watch it. But here's the thing. What was amazing is my life changed the day that one of my friends, we lived in an apartment complex, and so and I've talked about my guys from back in the day. It was Brian and Lee and all these guys, and Billy Ruff, who I ran over with a bike. That's another story. So one of those guys, I think it was Brian, he got 2 pairs of boxing gloves. And I was so pumped because I was like, man, I've watched Rocky. I'm ready to go. And so we get out there, and it was like, you know, we were just kind of like getting out there, and everyone was kind of boxing each other. So you're trying to like figure out, okay, who am I going to box? And we're kind of having fun with it. So it was my turn. I get these boxing gloves on. I've got Rocky right here in my head. I'm like ready to go. And I don't remember who I was like boxing against. But man, I was ready to go. And all of a sudden, I didn't know where I was. I didn't know where I was because I got clocked in the head by, I can't remember because I got hit so hard. And I didn't go down. But I was just like, I got rattled. And I was like, whoa, is this what this is all about? Like, you continue to fight after you get hit in the head? And so that was just a crazy experience. I don't know if I've ever really boxed since that day. And that was probably like in first or second grade or whatever. It was just one of those things, man, where it was like, wow, I don't think that Rocky's for me. And so here's the thing. Paul got rocked too. He got knocked off of his feet and he went down to the ground. And we're going to talk about that today. And it's really the second part of this series called Meet Me Here. And last week we talked about Stephen and the fact that if you want to be full of it, full of wisdom, full of power, full of grace and faith in the Spirit of God, if you want that, then you have to prioritize meeting with God, because we can see by the way that Stephen's life is described is that he was a guy who met with God. And he was able to stand and he was able to be strong until the end. And so this week, we're kind of talking about this idea of meet me here. Meet me here. And I don't know about you, but maybe you have been like me where you question, like, why would God ever want to meet me? Like, do you really understand, like, how distracted I am in my life? Like, how hard it's been for me to try to believe that there is a God? Do you really understand, like, how many problems I've had in my life? How many challenges I've had to deal with? All the things that I've done that I'm not proud of? Joe, do you really know what it's like to be me? And I'll tell you, I don't. But I do know this. I know what it's like to be me. And if you're like me, you've questioned this about God. Like, why, God, would you, the creator of the universe, the one who has everything and I could never add anything to you, is you want to meet with me? Well, I think that Paul's story helps us understand, like, just how much God wants to meet with you. And so if you have your Bible, we're going to be in Acts, and we're going to be in Acts mainly chapter 9, but we're going to hang out in chapter 8 for just 1 second, and then we're going to go over to 9. So before I dive in, let's just ask God to open up our hearts. So Lord, I pray for everyone that is listening right now to this message. This is probably, Lord, I believe, one of the most important stories in Scripture for us to understand and to really bring into our heart. Allow you to speak to our heart. And so, God, right now, I pray that all of us would just be a student right now, that we would be a student and that you would be the teacher. And so, Lord, we just thank you for that. Teach us through your word. In Jesus' name, amen. And so we're going to be in chapter 8, verse 1, and it's very, very simple. And you remember that Stephen has just been stoned, just been killed, and verse 1 of 8 says, "And Saul approved of their killing him." And it continues, "On that day a great persecution broke out against the church in Jerusalem." So here's where we pick up the story. We pick up the story. Paul, and at this time is called Saul. He is observing what is happening to Stephen. Stephen has preached the word of God. He has preached to these people, and they have called him a blasphemer. And then Saul sees this. They lay their coats at his feet to hold and protect them and keep an eye on them. And then he basically is watching this whole thing, and he approves of it. He approves of it. And right after that, a great persecution breaks out against the church. So I don't know about you, but feel free to read chapter 8. Philip is in there. Simon the sorcerer. It's amazing. Philip and the Ethiopian. That is awesome. But our focus today is Saul. And so we pick up in chapter 9 in verse 1. And it says this, "Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples." And so while all this is happening with Philip and all this other stuff is going on with the disciples, here Saul is, and he's still, and it's crazy wording, right? Because he's breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. This guy is not okay. This guy is on a rampage. He is on a rampage, and he has got an idea of what he thinks is right. He has an idea of where he thinks this whole thing needs to go. He knows all the wrong people and what needs to be done with them. And he is on mission, man. He has a purpose. He has a desire. He has just a whole identity that's wrapped around this. And he believes that he is accomplishing the work of God. He believes that he is holding up this tradition, and he is saying, listen, you cannot blaspheme my God. You cannot say these things. And he approves of Stephen being killed. And he then continues in verse 1 of 9 that he continues to have these murderous threats. And then if you skip down to verse 3, as he's on the road, verse 3 is, "As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him." Verse 4, "He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting, he replied. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. Let's just hold there for a second. Realize a couple of quick, little nuggets that are amazing is that the very first thing that Jesus says to Saul is he says, why are you persecuting me? But let's not make no mistake that Jesus and the disciples and his body of believers are one and the same. He is saying, I am the head, they are my body. Why are you persecuting me? He doesn't say, why are you persecuting them? And I think that that's very powerful to understand that Jesus, he calls us his own. And so that's just awesome. And then Saul says, hey, who are you? And he's been knocked down, and he's trying to figure out what is going on, and he's being told to go on to the city to be told what to do. In verse 7, it continues, the men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. They heard the sound, but they did not see anyone. In verse 8, Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So he was blinded. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. And for 3 days he was blind and did not eat or drink anything. This is a powerful moment for for Saul. And I'm going to grab the whiteboard real quick. So here we go. I'm off camera. I get that. And here we go. Everybody, I need to hear you guys give it up for the whiteboard. Because you just never know. You just never know what's going to happen with the whiteboard. And it's back, and it's big, and it's ready to go. And so as we're thinking about what's happening and what happens to Saul, I want you to kind of put yourself in that story. I mean, there is so much that's going on here where he has a purpose. He's like, I've got this thing figured out. I know where I'm headed, and I even have, in the part that we didn't read, I've got the backing of other people that are leadership that I can say I am the one that's supposed to be making this happen. And that I know that I have a purpose and I'm on a mission from God. And so what happens is what we see is that there's quite a transformation that happens to Saul. And I want to just kind of highlight a couple of things that happens. The first word that I want you guys to think about is the word dynamic. I know that's an interesting word for the kids, but there's this word dynamic. And then let's see what other marker is going to treat me right here. The other word that I want you to think about is this idea of your name, or the word name. And then the third word is going to be the word purpose. Let's see if the brown one works for us. So, purpose. And specifically, when you look at Saul, and that's kind of where we're thinking and where we're focused, I want you to kind of understand a few things. In verse 1 of chapter 9, okay, so this is chapter 9, verse 1. I'll just do it this way. Chapter 9, verse 1. He is storming around, and he is just going crazy persecuting the church. He is leading. He is on the offensive. He is the aggressor. He is being very aggressive with everything that he's doing. And so the dynamic here is he is leading, we'll say. You can use a lot of words. He is leading, and he is pushing, and he is just being so aggressive and on the assault. But I want you to just dive over to the verse that we read in verse 8. Did you catch it? It says this in verse 8, Saul got up from the ground. This is after Jesus meets with Saul. It says this, Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. Doesn't say this, but like a child. Here, he's leading. In verse 8, a mere 7 verses later, he is being led. and he's being led by a child, like a child, because he has no sight. He can't see anything. And so the dynamic that changes is that he is just on a tear. And the dynamic between him and God is, hey, God, I've got you. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Let me tell you what's up. The dynamic between me and you is, I got you. I am on mission for you, no problem. But the dynamic changes in verse 8, doesn't it? And it changes to a dynamic of Saul being led. Question. Do you feel like you are leading your life and you have got it all figured out and that you are ready to go? I mean, maybe you're a little bit off base, but you're like regrouping right now because of everything that's happened. And you're regrouping, you're saying, you know what? I know where I'm supposed to be headed. I know what I got going on. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And you've forgotten to meet with God. Because I believe that if you allow yourself and you pray that prayer, God, meet me here. If you pray that prayer, that your dynamic between you and God will change from you leading to you being led. And I believe that this is a roller coaster that I've been on because I can't preach it unless I'm living it. And I'll tell you what, these last 3 months, and I would even say these last 5 years, this has been like a roller coaster. And many times I'm like, God, I don't know what is going on. I don't know what is happening, but I'm trusting you to lead me. I want to be led by you. And are there days that I get up and I get up in the morning, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I've got this. I can lead this thing myself. Sure, absolutely. But man, am I reminded quickly, and even today in this passage, that man, God, I want to be led by you. The dynamic, when you pray, God, meet me here, you cannot meet with Jesus and not have this dynamic change. It can't happen. In the residency, I think it was this week, I don't know, Micah, if it was this week or not, but Jesus cannot be anything but number one in your life. Like, you can't say, Jesus, you're number two, because Jesus automatically, if he's in your life, he's number one. Otherwise, you're pretending. Because he can't be number two. He can't be number four. There cannot be any. If Jesus is in your life, the way that he is number one. And so that dynamic always is going to change. And it's always good. It may not be easy. It may not be pleasant. It may not be the best in your mind, but it is always good to be led by God. Let's look at another situation. I'm going to have to jump ahead a little bit. But if you see in verse 1 of chapter 9, again, meanwhile, Saul is still breathing out murderous threats. And so this guy, he is a persecutor. His name and what his name is all about is he's this guy. He is just persecuting, and we'll just call him a persecutor. And that's kind of what he's known to be. I mean, this guy, if you heard that Saul was coming to town and you were an early church and you were a believer, man, you were like on high alert because this guy is a persecutor and he is going to take you out. But what you do is when you read verse 17, which is a little further down than where we stopped, and after he had connected with the man that God wanted him to connect with, Ananias, in verse 17, it says this, then Ananias went to the house and entered it. Placing his hands on Saul, he said, Brother Saul. And that's all I wanted to go with right there. Brother Saul. He's called Brother Saul in verse 17. He goes in 16 verses, he goes from being a persecutor to being called brother. What a swing. When you meet with Jesus, something changes, and it changes that you become, instead of leading, you become led. And not only that, but whatever your name used to be, God allows there to be a different dynamic that creates a different name for you. And instead of being feared, yes, he was feared, and Ananias initially objected to what God wanted him to do because it was Saul This guy is a persecutor, hello. And God, through that process, reveals to Ananias, no, I'm doing a work. And then he comes in and calls Saul a brother. He calls him a brother. And so if you meet with God and you pray that prayer, God, meet me here, meet me here, you're going to leave behind who you were, and God is going to give you a new name. And for some of you, that's the best news that you've had all day. The third piece that I want you to see is that, again, in verse 1, and then another verse 22. And so in this one, I want you to see that in verse 1, his purpose, right? His purpose is all of these threats and all of these I'll just use that as the short word to put on the board. He's got all these threats and these murderous threats that he's going after. And so his purpose is to eliminate these new believers. His purpose is to accomplish what he thinks God has called him to do, what he thinks is right. Look at what not 22, verse 20. Sorry, Lauren. Verse 20, it says this. This is after he had been in Damascus, after he had been healed, after he had been baptized. Hello, we're not even mentioning that, but I just did. In verse 20, at once Saul began to preach in the synagogues that Jesus is the Son of God. He goes from being this guy with murderous threats to a guy who's now preaching the gospel. He goes from these murderous threats to preaching the gospel. This is again, in chapter 9, verse 1. This is chapter 9, verse 20. This is what we would say is the swing of swings. This is unbelievable stuff, you guys. That this would be a guy who is on a rampage, and then he goes to preaching the gospel. It goes on to say in verse 22, I believe it is, where everybody begins to freak out because of who this is. Yet Saul grew more and more powerful and baffled the Jews living in Damascus by proving that Jesus is the Messiah. Like, he's baffling people. Like, this whole thing, this 180, this swing that's happening, this is baffling. And so here's what we're going to do. Super simple. When you think about this and when you look at this, just take Saul's name out and put your name in. And when you look at your life and you say, hey, you know what? I'm on a mission. I know what I'm doing. Or, you know what? I'm known to be this. Or, you know what? I have my purpose all figured out. Let me just ask you, did you pray, God, meet me here every day last week? The answer is very simple. It's either yes or no, right? So last week I challenged you that when you got up in the morning, that you would just pray this prayer and just say, God, meet me here. And the answer is yes or no. I don't know which it is for you, but I want to just challenge you right now, because if you choose to say, God, meet me here, all of this stuff can be true of you too. And I think the reason, why don't we do it? Why don't we do it? I think the reason is where I started this whole thing. It's when we just don't really believe in our heart that God would really want to meet me. I mean, I'm not worth the time. I'm not ready to meet with him. I don't have my act together. All the things that I've done, all the things that I've said, all the different things that I've sabotaged in my life. How and why would God meet me? You know, Paul was blind for 3 days, and he fasted and didn't do anything during those 3 days, except I would think that he was thinking a lot. I would imagine that he may have even been reminded of Stephen's message, that he preached right before Saul saw him killed. And do you remember what the three things were that we talked about that Stephen covered? I'm sure that you may or may not, but I've got them right here. And the things that he said in that message were three things. Number one, God is on the move. Number two, God's blessings are not location specific. And number three is that Israel, the people of God, have always resisted God and the prophets. You know, I think as Saul was sitting there and he was blind for 3 days, and he was like, man, Stephen was right. Here I am, and I've been resisting God all this time. I'm just like all of the people that have gone before me, all of the people of God that have gone before me that have not gotten it right, haven't figured out what it is that Jesus really wants. And so he says, and so maybe some of us have been resisting God. I believe, and I can't prove this is just me talking, right? Because this is just me talking, is that I believe that we all get knocked down by God in some way, shape, or form. It isn't always like a radical thing like this. Sometimes it's just something that we know, something that is like, oh my gosh, there's a huge aha, there's an epiphany, there's something. And it's in those moments, and for some of you right now, it could be right now in this moment. You're sitting in someone's backyard, or you're sitting by yourself in your living room, or you're watching on your phone on a replay of this or whatever. But you are sitting here and you're going, you know what? This is my moment. This is my moment. And here's what's so amazing about God. He lets you push past it without responding. He allows you to experience what's happened. You see, Paul's story is in there for a reason. Paul's account is in there for a reason. To teach us what it is to mean that what happens when Jesus comes into our life is there is a change. There is a dramatic dynamic that changes. He gives us a new name and a new purpose. And so I want to encourage you guys today, because I believe that God not only wants to meet you where you are, but He has so many good things to bring to you, a new dynamic where you can just kind of like relax a little bit, and you can begin to cast your cares on Him. You can begin to allow that peace that you need to be given by Him. And you think about all the things that are happening in our world. Everybody that says, I've got this figured out, let me tell you, I am going to flood my social media profiles, and I'm going to let you all know that I've got it figured out, and that this group is the wrong group, and that they're the ones that need to pay, and they're the ones that are needing to get it right. They're the ones. It sounds a lot like Saul. It sounds a lot like Saul. And yet, when we put that to the side and we say, Jesus, meet me here, what ends up happening is there's a dynamic change, there's a name change, and there's a purpose change. My heart's desire isn't that you end up on the right side, it's that you end up on God's side. That you would just allow that boxing glove to kind of come across that chin to wake you up. I went to sleep for a quick second, but then I woke up and I was like, something's different. Something happened. And I know and I believe that God may be doing that in your life right now. So here's your challenge for this week. Ask God to meet you right where you are every day. Pray that prayer. God, meet me. Yes, me. With all of my shortcomings, all of my desires, all of my, I think I've got it figured out, all of my affections and the things that I want in life. Meet me with all of my messed up beliefs about the world and politics and who's right, who's wrong, and all of that. God, meet me. Me, the complicated, messed up Joe. Meet me right here. And isn't that grace? Isn't that grace? That God doesn't say, no, you know what? When you get cleaned up, I'll be good to go meet with you. No, you know what? When well, you'll be good and ready in a year or two. No. What does he do? He meets with you. And my prayer this week is that you would sense his presence in your life. It may be a whisper. It may be a shout. I don't know what it's going to be for you. But I know. Listen, why does God knows everything about you already. Stop trying to get ready for the dance. Like he's already asking you to dance. He knows the number of hairs on your head. He knows what you did yesterday. He knows what you did 10 years ago. He knows what you're going to do today. He knows what you're going to do 10 years from now. He knows the deepest, darkest parts of your heart, and he still cares. He still wants to meet with you. He still wants to be in your life. He knows all the dreams that have been shattered. He knows all the things that you wish would have been different about your life. He knows all those things. He hears your cries. He sees your tears. He understands your anger. He understands what it means to be betrayed. He understands what it means to have to give everything. He understands all of that. He understands why, that you want this and you want that, and that you feel entitled to have all of these things that you believe that you've worked for. He gets all of that. He gets all of those things that you've placed in the wrong place. He gets the fact that you've put other things first for so very long instead of Jesus. He understands all of that, and he still wants to meet with you. Meet me in all of the complexities of my mind, my heart, my soul, all of the complex, all the things that conflict within me. Meet me here, and he will, and he does. Jesus, meet me here. Meet me here. The band is going to come up, and as they do, my prayer is that you would see that if God will meet Saul on the road to Damascus, he will meet you. Saul was on a tear. He was on a tear. He was destroying the early church, the very work of God that Jesus had just prior ascended and started, and the Holy Spirit descended and just empowered. He was on a tear. He had all the smarts, and he had all the resume. He had the Romans behind him. He had the Jews behind him. He had all of the knowledge that you could possibly think of. He had it all. And maybe you do too, but here's the thing. He was wrong. He was going down the wrong road. And God met with him. And the world is different. You're a believer today because of Saul being converted. That transformation is probably the most important transformation that we see in Scripture, is because it changes our story. No longer does the gospel only connect back to the Jewish people, but it's now for everybody. Saul, who becomes Paul, becomes the tip of the spear on that. And so as we go into worship today, man, my prayer is going to be, Lord, meet us here. Meet me and all my complexities right here. So God, I just pray for everyone that's watching right now. And I pray, God, that as they take inventory of their life and all the things that they have done, all the things that they have said, all the things that they desire, all the details that they've gotten wrong, all of the different things in their life, the parts of the story they're not proud of. Lord, I pray that in all of that you would confirm and that you would just affirm in them that you want to meet them. Lord, help us to find you in this place, right where we are, and to know that you want to meet with me. As average as I may be, or as excellent as I may be, or as inferior I may feel, you want to meet with me. And so God, right now, in homes, on phones, on flat screens. Lord, I pray that your Spirit would speak to those that are watching and that they would begin to just worship you in the next few songs and allow you to do the work. We thank you for all that in Jesus' name.
Only God Almighty could create so much beauty, perfectly placing each part in the whole. Only living water could awaken the sinners, unite them together, making them one. Love is an anchor. Love is a home. Love will encourage. Love makes us whole. Love will never end, despite all our troubles. Oh, love is a hope worth fighting for. Only serving others can paint a clear picture as the eternal enters into our world. Only by the power of Christ who compels us, we build up our homes to see his glory unfold. Love is an anchor. Love is a home. Love will encourage. Love makes us whole. Love will never end, despite all our troubles. Love is a home worth fighting for.
1 Corinthians 13 reads, "If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now, faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love.
Love is an anchor. Love is a hope. Love will encourage. Love makes us whole. Love will never end, despite all our troubles. Oh, love is a hope worth fighting for. Oh, love is an anchor. Oh, love is a hope. Oh, love will encourage. Oh, love makes us whole. Oh, love will never end, despite all our troubles. Oh, love is a hope worth fighting for. Jesus, what a Savior, what a brother, what a friend, the lifter of the lowly, God in me where I am. Jesus, what a Savior, what a brother, what a friend, the lifter of the lowly, God you meet me where I am. Your He knows no borders, knows no wall. You're constantly I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. Jesus, what a Savior, what a brother, what a friend. You're the lifter of the lowly. God, you meet me where I am. Your heart, it knows no borders, knows no walls. Your heart constantly moving towards me with open arms. I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. No, I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. In your heart, it knows no borders, knows no walls. Your heart constantly moving towards me with open arms. I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. No, I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. No. Just stay with me. Hallelujah, hallelujah. What a beautiful way you've shown us. Hallelujah, hallelujah. What a wonderful Savior. Oh, hallelujah, hallelujah. What a beautiful way you've shown us. Hallelujah, hallelujah. What a wonderful Savior. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. What a beautiful way you've shown us. Hallelujah, hallelujah. What a wonderful Savior. I've is patient, your love is kind. Comes and meets me here every time. Oh, your love. Oh, your love. Your love is patient, your love is kind. It comes and meets me here every time. Oh, your love. Oh, it's your love. Oh, your love is patient, your love is kind. It comes and meets me here every time. Oh, it's your love. Oh, we want your love. Your love is patient, your love is kind. It comes and meets me here every time. Oh, your love. Oh, your love. Your love is patient, your love is kind. It comes and meets me here every time. Oh, your love. Oh, your love. I've never known a love like yours. 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 Sing it again. I've never known a love like yours. 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 My heart is weary, and my soul is weak. When it seems I can't traverse the trail before me, I survey the glory of your agony, and I find the will to fight for what's before me. And you ran the race, enduring for your glory. I fix my eyes on you, and the founder and the finisher of our faith. I fix my eyes on you, and the solace in your suffering is my strength. As I fight to follow, you're my righteous guide, and you train me to delight in all that's holy. You're my broken body, my crooked stride. Throw off every weight and sin that clings so closely. I will solace in your suffering is my strength. On you, the founder and the finisher of our faith. I fix my eyes on you, and the solace in your suffering is my strength.
Second place is you get ready to go and have the rest of your day. Let me just challenge you a little bit and help you understand why this is really important to me. You see, I think what's important, this whole message has been about the fact that God will meet with you in all of that craziness and give you that new purpose and that new name, that new dynamic. And the reason why this is super important for all of us is because of that word us. Like, if you don't believe that God will meet with you and will work in your life, we're going to have a hard time coming back together again and believing that he's going to meet with us, right? Because, well, if he won't meet with you and won't meet with you and won't with you and won't with me, then why would he meet with us? But if all of us will go through a process and allow God to show us individually that he will meet with me and you and you and you and you, that then when we come back together, when we move forward as a community of faith, what happens is we move together and we believe that God is going to meet with us. And I don't know, I think that for me, that picture of Paul or Saul at the time being led like a child, being blind, having been on such a tear, and then being led to a man that he doesn't know, that calls him brother and lays his hands on him and he receives his sight. My prayer is that every time that we get together, every connection that you make through this community, that it's just like Ananias' hands being able to give that sight by God to Saul. That there would be someone in your life that may be a part of this community, that's somebody that believes and that trusts and that's reaching out to you, that is that person in your life, that is the hands and feet of Jesus to you. And therefore, when you allow yourself to be led like a child, and you allow yourself to be touched and to be ministered to by the body, because we believe that God will meet with us. Man, what a beautiful picture. And so second place is you go, may you receive and may you give. Receive and release. Receive and release. May you receive and may you release. And so as you have experienced the hands and feet of Jesus coming to you in different people and allowing the love of God to surround you, may you also be the hands and feet of Jesus this week. May you be light in dark places. And may you go out and change the world this week. And do that because of the new dynamic, the new name, and the new purpose that Jesus is giving you as he meets with you. Pray that prayer this week. God, meet with me. Meet me here. And we'll see you guys next week, and maybe even sooner online. So we love you guys. Have a great week. Go get it.
Safe in your sanctuary.